Welcome to the Inside Scoop Live podcast, where indie authors get personal about their books, their writing, and their passions. I'm your host, Sherry Hoyt. Join me for some lively conversations with debut indie authors and seasoned veterans alike. It's a great place to find your next amazing read or even get inspired. So sit back and enjoy the show and let me know what you think. Hey everyone, welcome back to Inside Scoop Live. Today I'm talking with Sandra Brown-Lindstedt, author of Life of a Firefly, which is a stunning collection of stories that will appeal to children and adults alike, reminding us that no matter how bleak a situation may seem, a little faith or a firefly can take us a long way. It also gives children of color a mirror of strong characters that look like them, and others a window to experience the African American community in a whole new way. But before we get started, here's the inside scoop on Sandy. Sandra Brown-Lindstedt was born and raised in Chicago and moved to Portland with her 3 children when she was 33. After working as a medical secretary for many years, she decided to go back to college and get her degree, graduating from Lewis and Clark College in Portland, Oregon, with bachelor's degrees in theater and English. She's also worked in New York on stage productions, art, and design. She's won 2 first-place short story awards and 3 poetry awards, publishing the work in literary journals. She has written and directed numerous plays in the U.S. and Sweden. Sandy resides in Sweden with her husband, and Life of a Firefly is her first children's book. Well, hi, Sandy. Welcome to Inside Scoop Live.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I am delighted to talk with you today. But first of all, I just want to congratulate you on all your recent literary awards for Life of a Firefly. That's amazing.
But thank you so much. It has been amazing for me. It has almost been like a life changer for me because it just validated everything that my husband was saying about it, my writing. And it's very good to know that others think that, it's worthy of an award. So I'm very happy. I'm very happy. And my family is very happy for me also.
I'll bet. And listeners, just to get you up to speed, Life of a Firefly won several awards in the Reader Views Literary Awards program that just concluded recently, including the overall grand prize fiction winner. So Sandy and Life of a Firefly, they're our big news item this week. So.
Okay.
So first of all, why don't you tell us a little bit about Life of a Firefly? What is the story all about?
Well, Life of a Firefly is actually based on my life, as like a memoir of my life between the ages of 4 to 12. And it's about growing up in Chicago in the South Side and pretty much in poverty with my 5 other siblings. Mm. And it's about my journey of discovery of that I was not just my circumstances, but I was more than just my surroundings. Mm-hmm. And my grandmother had a lot to do with that. I used to visit her in Texas, and she was my mentor in a sense, that she let me know that I was more than just a little Black girl on the South Side of Chicago, poverty. So this book is about a journey, and it's about faith. And the faith is symbolic. It's a metaphor for the firefly.
Oh, okay. So, can you give us a little insight into that firefly? Like what happens?
Well, I swallow a firefly on a dare from my sister, my big sister. She was always daring me to do this and that, And since she was my big sister, I felt like I had to comply.
Right.
So I did. And she thought it was going to light up in my stomach. And so she would look at my stomach and pat it and see whether it lit up or not. And since it didn't, she was very disappointed. But that firefly became symbolic for me because I knew that the firefly was there and it wasn't dead. It was still alive inside of me.
I love that.
Yeah. And my grandmother sort of affirmed that when I told her about the Firefly, she says, we're going to light him up. We're going to let him stay lit, and he's going to be with you in all the dark places that you go. He's going to be that light. And
I
so,
absolutely love that. Yeah.
yeah, so that's kind of how Life of a Firefly evolved into that.
Yeah, yeah. So you mentioned a little bit about your husband being kind of your champion for your writing. Uh, what actually inspired you to write this story?
Well, he actually inspired me, along with just nagging me every day, because when I came to Sweden, he was very curious about the way I grew up, and so I told him a lot of stories about my life growing up, and he was writing them down, the
Mm.
headlines, and so he accumulated almost 50 of these little headlines,
Wow.
and he brought them to me one day. He said, write a book. And I am trained, I was a theater major in college, just doing plays, writing plays and directing. And I didn't think of myself as a novelist or a writer or author in that sense. But he
Right.
says, you can do this, you can do that. And so what I did was I wrote, based on what he gave me, a little memoir. And I let my friends and who are teachers, and they're very critical, by the way. And they read it, and my other friend Kay, who teaches middle school at our international school here in Gothenburg, said, I want you to take some of these stories because they're wonderful, and I want you to read them to some of the students at my school. And I was like, no, I don't like children so much, especially middle school children. And I don't know if I can do that, And she was like, yes, you can. So I went there, at her insistence. I'm always being prodded, I'm always being pushed in some direction. And so I went there with the story. I made pamphlets out of some of the stories and made them kid friendly because it was an adult memoir.
Yeah.
And I read them to 5 of the classes there. And it was amazing. I mean, amazing. The kids, they hugged me afterwards. They wanted to know about little Sandy, what was going to happen to her. Oh, you have to write more. And they wanted all my pamphlets. I didn't have anything when I left there.
Oh my goodness.
So with them, with their encouragement and the love that they showed me at that school, because I read for like 5 classes, different classes. Wow. And the love I felt from them and my husband's encouragement, that's how I sat down to do it.
That is an amazing story of itself. So how do you feel about children now?
I love children. I'm writing even more children's books. I think they're amazing. When you have bad experiences growing up, in middle school, you don't want to go back there,
Right.
But it was like a whole different arena, what I experienced. So yeah, I love them.
I love that. Yeah. Now you mentioned that you wrote it as an adult memoir, but so how did it come to be a children's book?
Well, I knew that the children had inspired me to write, and I wanted to give them something back, and I wanted to, because I promised them I was going to go and try. And so I knew that the book that I would write would be for middle school children. But it's just amazing that adults love this book just as much as middle school children. And I was really surprised.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I loved it.
Oh, did you read it too?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. I got to know what's going on. I can't let anything die. I loved it. And I love little Sandy too. She is so fun. She is, and she just goes after things. I loved her. I loved her so much.
But she was always getting into something, and And so my older sister, she was considered the good girl, the good one, and I was the bad, the outcast that, that needed some restrictions at all costs,
Yeah.
And so, yeah, and it sort of changed when we grew up, I guess.
Oh, okay. So, did you think it was a challenge writing for kids? Like, what was it like taking your adult story and adapting it for children?
I didn't feel it was a challenge because I guess I haven't grew up yet in my head, you know. And so when I started writing things about my life as a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old or a 7-year-old, it just, I heard the voice within me
Mm.
just speaking those words out in a childlike voice. And so that's what I was writing, what I
Okay.
was hearing in my, yeah, that was coming back to me. So I thought it was going to be a big challenge, but I think the biggest, sometimes as we grow older, we get a lot of words, a lot
Mhm.
of, big words that we use around, and kids are looking at you like, what are you talking about?
Right.
So I managed to keep those words out and just made it simple.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But I didn't want to condescend on another level to children either,
Right.
because they sort of know when you're talking down to them.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So I just wanted to keep her voice and show her flaws and show her positives all at the same time.
And you did a fantastic job, I must say.
Oh,
So,
thank you.
so what is the most important thing you hope that kids or adults also, for that matter, take away from reading Life of a Firefly?
You know, the way life is today is much different than the way life was when I was growing up. I
Hmm.
guess it was a simpler time, but it was still complicated because of the historical things that were happening in the 60s. And right now, what we're facing is another historical time of a different level.
Right.
Yeah. And so taking away, I think what they need is hope. And I'm hoping that my book will give them a sense of faith in themselves and their future. Because when you look around, sometimes it can close in on you. I mean, I've read about young kids in middle school committing suicide and
Mm.
all these terrible things that are happening because they feel a sense of hopelessness, that's surrounding them.
Right.
And with this book, they can see the challenges that I faced and the hope that I kept within me from what my grandmother instilled in me, which is a hope and faith in God and
Mm.
something outside of myself. Then I'm hoping that they would take that away, that they know that they're not alone. I just want them to know that they can have a firefly. The firefly is within all of us, actually. It
Yeah.
just needs to be ignited and kept alive. And yeah, that's what I would hope.
Yeah, that is so important. And I really hope that you can get your books into the hands of many, many children.
That's what my dream and hope is that it will be in libraries and schools. Like here in Gothenburg, it's in the school libraries here. and
Oh.
and these kids, you wouldn't think that they would identify with
Hmm.
somebody, like a Black girl on the south side of 60, but they identify because the hope is universal. It's a universal theme going through it. And so, yeah, that's my dream, is that it's in every school, and it will cause a lot of dialogue and a lot of essays to be written
Yeah.
about this book.
Nice. Yeah. I want to talk about some of the feedback you've been getting on Life of the Firefly. One of your reviews, the reviewer is talking about your comment of how Life of a Firefly is particularly suited for ages 8 to 12. And he says, and I'm going to quote this because it's an amazing quote. He says, "I'm afraid that's like saying To Kill a Mockingbird is at heart a children's book just because it's narrated by a child. So is Life of a Firefly. But the child, a young girl named Sandy Forte, is every bit the storyteller and every bit as literate as Scout. This book is every bit as powerful, as emotive, and as profoundly evocative and compelling as its more famous classic cousin. If Life of a Firefly is just a children's book, then I must confess to one more guilty pleasure, reading classic literature disarmingly disguised as something meant for kids." And that's by Joel Denstedt for Reader's Favorite. And wow, that review just blew me away. What did you think when you heard that?
that sort of blew me away. I was like, what? And because that's one of my all-time favorite books
Yeah.
and movies, actually. And I felt like I had so much then to try to live up to. And especially since I'm writing a sequel to Life of a Firefly.
Oh, right.
Yeah. And this man, usually you think men are not really into I think of this as like a girl book,
Right.
but he loved it. And so I was so honored and amazed by his review.
Absolutely. That was very nice.
And that is, believe it or not, this is the kind of feedback too, just from people who have told me after they read the book. Like this one gentleman, he had asked if I could sign a book and send it to his daughter. And I said, sure, I'll do that. And so he was sort of reading it to his daughter, and he was like, this is a great book. His daughter has yet to read the book yet because he's reading it,
She can't get her hands on it.
No, and I'm sure he didn't expect that, because he just expected to get a book for his daughter.
Right, right.
And
That's
then
great.
my husband's friend, he's Swedish and his daughter is 7. And I said, this book is a little bit too older for her,
Mhm.
And he said, well, I'll just keep it. And then when she gets, because she's very advanced, and I'll just read it and see if it's too much for her.
Mhm.
And so he wrote my husband, and he said, I love this book. And, so this is the kind of feedback I've been getting from men. So
Yeah,
that's really different.
that's wonderful. Yeah, I love that. Now, you mentioned earlier you were writing a sequel. So, um,
Right.
what's that going to look like? You said the Life of a Firefly. So the first part was from ages 4 to
8.
10,
It was from ages 4 to 12.
4 to 12.
And actually, that's when I entered high school, because I had a couple of jumps, as they say.
Oh,
When
wow.
you take a test, they say, okay, you're supposed to be in this grade or whatever.
Mhm.
And so when I entered high school, I was 12. And so this is where the book is going to start. It's going to be her high school years, from freshman to senior.
Okay, wow. So, how many stories do you have about high school?
Oh, well, Sandy gets in a little trouble in high school, she's herself,
Yeah.
and she thinks she knows it all. She thinks she knows more than the teachers know.
Oh,
And so she gets in a little trouble, but she always gets back because her Firefly is still there, even
well,
though she has squelched him a couple of times. But yeah, so we'll see what Sandy's going to be doing.
yeah, I know there's going to be a lot of people interested in that. Where are you now in the process, and when do you think this book will
Well,
be done?
right now, I'm just making outlines of how
Mhm.
I want it to go, because when you write about yourself, there's so many things that you know about yourself that you think, oh, I can't leave that out. But
Yeah.
when you're writing a whole linear type book, you have to leave out stuff. So I have to find out where I want to go exactly. And so I'm writing an outline of that.
Mhm.
And I usually rely on this inner voice in the morning.
Hmm.
It wakes me up and it starts to talk, and I have to write really fast to get everything down,
Mm.
because it starts to put it into a context. Like most of the poems that are in the book were written like that, just in the morning, writing really fast, getting everything down.
Wow.
And those were the poems. So
Wow.
yeah, that's kind of I don't know if anybody else has that kind of way to write, but that's the way I've been writing now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So you're just in the beginning stages now.
in the
Yeah.
beginning stages, and I
Okay.
hopefully, because I have to do the editing thing. The editing is the hardest thing to do, because they come back and say, take that out, they start messing with everything.
Right,
So
right.
I want to get it out before the end of the year
Mm.
and have it published by then.
All right. Wow. You're going to be busy.
I am, because I have finished and completed writing 5 children's books for little kids from the ages of 3 to 6.
Okay,
And that just came
nice.
about because I was a grandmother and I got a little granddaughter, and she's 3 years old and she's the funniest little girl I've ever seen. I'm just like, and so I had to write this for children her age. Yeah.
Absolutely. Oh, wow. That's exciting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
So
wow,
I'm
you are
pretty
busy.
busy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I
Yes.
have a coloring book that I'm doing also, which is another thing, which is
Yeah.
actually completed now. So I have been extremely busy.
Yeah. Lots of things for us readers to look forward to for sure. So think about your debut journey with Life of a Firefly and looking back, what kind of advice or information would you give to new authors, up and coming authors, emerging authors? What would you say to those folks? What would you tell
Well,
them?
you have to be honest, first of all, write honestly for yourself first, and not think of what other people are going to think about what you're writing.
Mm,
And I find that a lot of times we start to edit ourselves and limit ourselves what we want to say, and you have to just say it out, whatever you have, and don't hold back, and keep a journal. I think it's good for all writers to journal things, even if they're not going to write it in a book. Just
mhm.
write it down because you might use it in something later. And
Yeah.
that's what I've learned. I mean, I've learned that actually from my husband for keeping all those little things, tidbits that I said. So you never know. And being a writer is one thing, being an author is another thing. If
Mm.
you want to be an author, then you have to have 2 hats. You have to have a hat. You have to take off your writing hat and put on your marketing hat.
Mhm.
and then because you're not just selling your book, you're selling yourself.
Right.
Then so that's something that you have to know what you're getting into if you want to go into being an author, and learn your craft. Learn it. Read other books by other authors, listen to what they have to say, and join other groups of writers who you can share your writing with, and so they can give you back an honest feedback,
Hmm.
because you don't want to all of a sudden to find out that your book is crap and get all these terrible reviews without, you know,
Right.
and then find out, oh, I should have done ABC. Yeah, find out before it's published.
Right. Right. Yeah. Well, that there's a lot of good advice in there because writing the book is probably the easiest part. It's what
Exactly.
comes afterwards that,
Mm,
that is a totally new experience for new writers. So, yeah, that's great
totally
advice.
new. I tell you, I was not prepared for the marketing part and the being out there, because most not all, but most writers are introverts. They
Hmm.
don't like to be on stage, the center of attention. And now that I've been writing, I'm sort of the center
Right.
of
Right. Yeah.
this. You have to learn to know that that's going to happen
Yeah.
and be prepared.
Well, Sandy, is there anything else you wanted to add today?
You know what? I just want to say to reader views, thank you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Really. You guys, what you have done and how you have done it, it's been amazing. And how you are inspire other writers to write is amazing. And I'm just so happy that I saw this, from my publicist about reader views, and
Mm.
to enter my book in, and to meet you guys, because you're phenomenal at what you do.
Oh, that's so nice. I mean, Sandy, truly, it's working with people like you. It's authors like you that are the reason we do what we do. So, thank you. And thank you for joining us today and telling our listeners a little bit about yourself and your work and all of the exciting things you have coming up.
Well, thank you again for having me. It's a pleasure.
Thank you for joining me today for my interview with Sandra Brown-Lindstedt, author of Life of a Firefly. To learn more about Sandy, visit her at Facebook. And be sure to check out our other interviews at InsideScoopLive.com.